Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we are going to be speaking about unicorns, the mythical creatures. No, the big companies that bring in $1 billion+ valuation for themselves. We're going to be talking about what it takes to build $1 billion company and also what it means to fund $1 billion company, as well as we brought together a couple investors from around the world to share with us their thoughts and insights and on the ground perspective of just doing that as well. And if you'd like to be on a show like today's, please reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find the right spot for you. Speaking of team, a big thank you to the LaToken team and to Maria, along with Hasmik, for making today's episode of VCTV possible. To the audience, for those first tuning in, the comment box is open. It's a new feature we have here on VCTV, so feel free to drop in some questions for our conversation today. Again, we're going to be focusing on building billion-dollar companies, also known as unicorns in the industry. Again, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and get started introducing our guests. First up, Harsh, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background.
Thanks, Kyle. Glad to be back, to have discussion with you and Gary over here. So just to have a small background about myself, my name is Harsh Shetia. I'm a venture partner with our ventures. We raise investments all the way up to $10 million for startups across the world, primarily focusing in India though. We are a sector agnostic fund. I have interest in wide variety of topics like fintech, health tech, marketing tech, etc. And currently, I'm also started my own Facebook group called Startup Hackers, basically helping early stage startups from developing countries like Southeast Asia and Africa who don't have the technical knowledge of how to start a startup. I'm trying to help those in a small way, whichever way I can. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you as well, Harsh. Congratulations on the new group as well. Excited to see how that support group
Thanks.
continues to grow, led by yourself and your team. Gary Fowler, Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence and someone who has helped build $1 billion company once or twice over. Welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. No, it's great to be here. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. Been involved in co-founding 17 companies. Serial entrepreneur, love AI and quantum computing. I've had the pleasure of being involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, a company that came from Haifa, Israel to the US. Did an IPO on NASDAQ. Company was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion 23 months ago, actually. It's amazing how time flies. And also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded 5 years ago. I say that because it's almost the anniversary for that too. It seems like yesterday, but this is a booming market. We love AI and quantum computing. And my company today is GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio, curating companies from all over the world using Silicon Valley as a port to get them out. So it's great to be here and great to have this discussion today.
Thank you. I'm excited to have both of you here today again to discuss today's topic, how to build $1 billion company. Gary, let's kick it off with you. I mean, you've gone through this a couple times. You've mentioned it in many times throughout the show. What did it take? Maybe not even what it takes. Where do you start? How do you start thinking about building $1 billion company? As it doesn't just happen overnight, as many may think, just from headlines that are put out there. So really, what does it take to build a $1 billion company?
Well, the luck, a lot of luck. So I'd say door number 1 is a lot of luck. But the first part is you have to have incredible technology that can make a dent in the universe, or technology that can be pivoted, that really has a wide market adoption. So from my standpoint, grit is part of it, Kyle. So it's not easy. It's not like straight up. It's not a hockey stick. It's about up and down till you figure the company out and how the company starts to run. It's like tuning an engine of a car. A lot of it is, by the way, the visibility, what kind of visibility you can generate. With Click Software, so I was brought in by Oak Investment Partners to the company as a senior vice president. I changed the name of the company from IET to Click Software, came up with a family of products, Click Plan, Click Fix, Click Analyze. So it looked like a big company. I remember I had a discussion with the founder of Sun Microsystems, Scott McNeely, and I'll never forget, he told me that one of the reasons they thought Sun was a really big company is because they made really nice boxes. And they put Sun Microsystems on the outside, which stands for Stanford University Networks and our network. And I remember him saying that. And so we changed the name, and it was amazing how a little name change could be such impactful. Because what happened is people thought that they had seen the company before, because they hear Microsoft, they hear Oracle, and click software, click, mouse, click, and software. So it was interesting how that happened and the dynamic and how much that really helped the company grow. The other thing is visibility. So in terms of PR, I had a rather large PR budget. We actually put about $3 million into PR to help the company really grow. And so getting the visibility out. And again, we were a little company of the Israeli Air Force. We did an IPO on NASDAQ first, and then the company was sold to Salesforce. So, part of it, grit, being at the right place at the right time, making sure you get a lot of visibility for the company, make some substantive changes to it. You got to understand that there are pivots that are going to take place and respond to the market. You got to do your customer development to make sure you're in tune with the market and that people are really willing to buy the products that you have to sell. The other thing is getting the research groups like Gartner, Forrester Group to really buy off of what you have and to start to publish it, because a lot of the corporations look at those publications to see who's hot and who's not. I remember with one company, I got one of the groups to say that we were hotter than a habanero pepper. And when they said that, it caught and it stuck, and people were talking about it all over the world. So it's not easy, but guess what? There's a lot of companies that have the potential to become unicorns. It's a matter of building the right team, building the right kind of balance. So technical, marketing, operations, those kind of things. And also, today it's with artificial intelligence and quantum computing. I mean, it's a really hot topic, and it can deal with massive amounts of data. So if it was me and I'm a startup out there today, I would be figuring out how I can impact the supply chain, how I can use artificial intelligence, ladder networks, VAE, et cetera, to impact the supply chain. I mean, there's simple things that we've understood during this pandemic that have not been cured. We have quantum computers. We can't get toilet paper. There's something wrong with the picture. So we need to get down through. We know global warming is a big deal, and it's a big topic around the world. Think about sensors. Think about impactful things. Come up with a story. Storytelling. My friend Bill Reichert wrote a book recently called Getting to Wow. And that's what it's all about. You got to be able to get in front of an audience and enchant them, as Guy Kawasaki says. Enchant them and get them excited at your product or service. Give them that one line that gets your attention. I'll give you, for instance, one of the companies that I was involved with, we had a weather forecasting model. And the tagline was, you cannot control the weather, but you can control the impact on your business. And it was amazing. I actually had the CEO of Walmart come to me and talk to me at a conference directly about that. And so one little line that you use in a presentation can have an impact for people coming over. It's marketing, it's PR, it's getting in front of the group and enchanting them.
Hotter than a jalapeno pepper, habanero pepper, habanero pepper. My apologies.
I never had a habanero. I tried it after that, and that was the last time I tried it.
Same. I thought I was brave. Cooked some habaneros like I would a jalapeno. Last time I ever did that.
I had habanero cheese. It was habanero pepper jack cheese, and it was the hottest cheese I've ever had in my life.
There's $1 billion. There's a unicorn startup idea. Better packaging, better labels. Do not eat like any other pepper. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Gary Harsh. Anything to add on to Gary's points, but also just in general from your standpoint, having been an entrepreneur, being an investor, what does it take to build $1 billion company, especially now today here in 2021 when there's more technology, there's more opportunities, there's more resources than ever before?
Exactly, you're bang right. In terms of the access to capital, access to resources, access to facilities, all of that is so high. Scaling is no longer hard. However, the difficult part still remains in terms of trying to get the right opportunity and the right idea, right? A lot of the times we tend to startup founders tend to fix it on an idea and don't try to think beyond that. The first and foremost which I think is required is we need two co-founders, one of them with a very strong vision for the company of how it's going to change the world, right? Unless it's going to change the world, you cannot be a billion-dollar company. Having a small product, it could be like a good side business, but to have a unicorn, it has to be something which is highly impactful and which really changes the paradigm of how things are operating, right? That is the very essence of a startup. So it has to be something which truly shapes the market. It changes the way how market has historically operated. So that is kind of the first essence. It's what is required. And the second co-founder, as I mentioned, is got to be the operational powerhouse, right? So the two co-founders kind of balance themselves out in a way that one is the visionary who's leading with the vision and driving and motivating the employees, as well as motivating the customers, as Gary kind of pointed out, right? Enchant your customers through the wow effect, right? The wow factor. Create that, as well as you need to have someone parallelly to handle the operations, who kind of digs into the trenches and gets shit done, as Gary always says. So essentially that's the combination is what is required. And I personally believe the biggest determiner of a unicorn is the founders. So you don't kind of bet on the horse, you bet on the jockeys, right? So that is for me the first and foremost most crucial aspects when I judge whether the company has a potential to be a unicorn or not. And to be a unicorn, it is basically it's like a cosmic fluke, right? There's like a billion to one odds of a startup turning into a unicorn. It's an extremely hard work, extremely hard. The kind of effort that you have to put in, almost superhuman. The amount of sacrifices which are required, and you need to have a lot of patience. You need to have a willingness to sacrifice, and you need to have the ability to take risks, make mistakes, forget about them, move on, make some new mistakes, because that is the only way you learn. You cannot have a predetermined mindset that this is what is required to build a unicorn. It rarely works that way. You need to be able to kind of take the risks, take the hits, take the blows, move forward, forget about the mistakes that are done, focus on the learnings that you've done, and grow on a weekly basis, right? If you grow 5 to 10% on a weekly basis, it shouldn't take more than 5 years to become a unicorn. But the essence is you need to be willing to make the mistakes and have the courage to own those mistakes and keep on moving forward. That is one of the major aspects in order to have a successful unicorn.
It's a very good point, Harsh, as well. And kind of switching gears, now that we look at the landscape of the world and where a lot of the unicorns have come from. Again, we're talking about companies that are valued at more than $1 billion in terms of valuation, and much more than that. So in terms of where this is happening, I mean, right now we've got a majority here in the US. That has kind of been taken over by Southeast Asia as well, with the majority of unicorns starting to rise there. Question to you both is, where will we see the concentration of the next billion-dollar companies, those next unicorns here in the decade in front of us? When again, the decade before was very concentrated in a few regions, prominently in the United States. Now that's starting to shift into Southeast Asia. We've got a handful in Europe. That's again changing throughout. But for both of you, and Harsh, I want to come back to you first on this. Where do you see regional-wise the growth or the explosion of these unicorn companies here in the next decade?
Got it. So you're quite right in terms of the expansion of startups which are turning into unicorns from the Asian side, right? You have China, which is a huge powerhouse in that. India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, having almost 25 unicorns right now, and we have a couple companies who are operating at $500 million plus valuations, and they could. It's just a matter of taking the next round of funding, and they would be unicorn in the next 1 or 2 years, right? So definitely, Asia is going to be the next powerhouse in terms of producing more unicorns. And that, I would also say, that is kind of because of the expectations as well. The thing compared to in US, the expectations tend to be far higher in terms of if the money it comes so easily, kind of invest $5-10 million is quite easy to raise, but along with that comes a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations as well, that if you don't kind of get those returns as quickly as is expected, the company can go bust equally as quickly as well. Compared to that, in India, it is kind of a bit harder to raise that kind of capital, but at the same time, because it is harder, it is also even more easier in a way, you could say, that the pressure is lesser. So even if the startup takes a little more time to reach that level, it's not that big of a deal breaker, right? So this is kind of how the ecosystem is different in terms of how the US is operating and how the Asian markets are operating, and this is what makes a more sustainable possibilities of building unicorns from a country like India or Singapore or China for that matter, because it's not that critical that you have to succeed or else you'll completely die off. So that is one of the major factors. Additionally, if you look at it, most of the founders in India, the most of the unicorns in India for that matter, the average age of the founder is relatively higher. It's more between the range of 30 to 35, sometimes even higher than that, right? Compared to the unicorns which are in US. So what happens because of the age factor is these founders tend to be extremely mature, and because of that they are able to adapt to the kind of skill set required, right? So to take a startup from 0 to 1, a different skill set is required. From 1 to 10, a different skill set is required. From 10 to 100, a different skill set is required. So the adaptability is there, and the VCs are more than willing to cooperate with the founders to kind of ensure that the startup founder adapts to that and kind of gets used to the new paradigms which is there, and handholds them a lot to ensure that they are in a much more stable position to be able to retain the mantle of leadership of the company.
That's a very good point, Harsh and Gary. Thank you, and Gary, to you. I mean, same question. Regionally, where do you see this next class of unicorns coming from here in the decade in front of us?
Well, I mean, the situation is, before I had said Eastern Europe because we focused on AI and quantum computing, but I got to tell you, Kyle, I'm finding companies all over the world. So, as I had said earlier, we have companies now in Africa, 3 companies in Africa, Rwanda, Nigeria, South Africa, AI companies. Look at Canva in Australia. So we're seeing these all over. And the one thing I'll never forget, Scott McNeely, who's the founder of Sun Microsystems, once said to me, he said, go to the places that you fear the most and you'll find opportunity. And when I went to Russia originally, there weren't a lot of Americans over there at the time. And I got involved in the startup ecosystem, and I found incredible opportunities from Vladivostok over in the Far East all the way to Kaliningrad, and up north of the Arctic all the way down south through Russia to Central Asia. So you got to look where other people aren't. I mean, it's just like pretty simple. It's a keep it simple, stupid thing. You want to look for that companies where other people aren't. The other things we talk about billion-dollar valuations. Well, the billion-dollar valuations many times are in the US. So part of it is getting those companies over here so they can get those kind of valuations, and more importantly, get the kind of support from the venture capitalists and the investors, because it's, that when you look at it, really the whole idea of building a billion-dollar company, having been through it a couple of times, is really about the contacts and the network that you have, the marketing, sales, and business development that you're able to do. And of course, a lot of luck is mixed in with it. But if you build the company right, you have the right kind of advisors on board, you have the company structured in the right way so it's transparent. A lot of times the companies coming from other places don't have as much transparency. So it's like building a house. You got to build the foundation in order to finish the house. So if you built the house the right way, the thing that you can do is you really maximize and optimize the potential of that company. I see those. I mean, like I said, this morning I was on the phone with Nigeria, and there are several very interesting many actually interesting Nigerian companies, and several possible Nigerian AI unicorns. So, but you got to find them. I mean, not a lot of people know there are 206 million people in Nigeria, right? They know about the scamming and all that. But let me tell you, if you're a good scammer, you're a good sales guy, right? So they could be really good because they know how to speak. So what you want to do is move it forward, look, uncover it, look everywhere for the opportunities. And you'll never, I remember a billionaire friend of mine said one time, Gary, what is entrepreneurship like? He said, it's like flipping a coin. I said, what do you mean? He said, give me a coin. I said, okay, Bob, here's a coin. He said, I'm going to flip it. What is it? Heads or tails? I said, heads. He said, it's heads. He said, but if you never would have tried, you never would have found out. He said, you had zero chance of winning. So the key about entrepreneurship is trying. You never know.
Yeah, and one thing that hasn't been mentioned directly as well, when it takes to build a billion-dollar company is also market and market demand, product market fit. If you're building, doesn't matter where, because we are moving towards this digital economy and this digital world that we're all living. So you're seeing more decentralization of companies or distributed companies where there's not necessarily one central head, is also just market. Right? When we look at regions around the world, I mean, the thing that has brought a lot of companies in the US success is that they don't just build for the US, but they also build for a global audience. Those within Asia have focused very heavily on the population in Asia, which we know the numbers as well. I mean, the next two big markets that are outside of India, Harsh, I will add, is Latin America. We have South America. Brazil is a huge opportunity that's still getting its feet on the ground in terms of growth. And then Africa. I mean, there's billions of people around the world that have just yet to be untapped with products and services that others, take for granted on day-to-day use. So for those out there, I mean, look towards Latin America, look towards Africa, and again, look to South America as well for these untapped potentials. And Gary and Harsh, I want to come to you also as well as industries. I mean, what industries aside from supply chain? We know supply chain is going to always be a billion-dollar company industry, but outside of that, where are you seeing the opportunities for industries really open up for future unicorns? Whether it's this year in 2021 or as fast as next year and really the decade ahead. And Harsh, let's start with you. What industries are you looking at as billion-dollar companies?
So the two most prominent sectors which I see, which are ripe for innovation and ripe for those kind of growth and valuation, primarily in India, are health tech, fintech, and I would also add agri-tech to that as well. Currently, the situation in agri-tech in India is extremely poor because there is no standardization involved. The logistics is extremely poor. A lot of times the stock simply gets wasted and we have no ways to kind of track that. Farmers are facing a lot of trouble. Many of them, unfortunately, because they are unable to feed their families or kind of pay off the loans, they have to even commit suicide, right? I'm sorry to kind of mention that over here in this kind of situation. However, agriculture is one of the most, it's basically the backbone of India, and it's extremely important to focus on that sector, which till date has not been truly been focused upon. You look at the kind of wastage that we see on a regular basis in agriculture and dairy segment. So that is one sector which desperately needs innovation, so that we can get the majority of the Indian population out of that situation kind of into with a better lifestyle. So that is definitely one. You combine that with health tech and fintech, right? In the health tech space, India, despite being one of the largest opportunities in the world, we have not had a single unicorn in the health tech space, primarily because most of the companies which have, the health tech focused companies which have been in India, the focus has probably not been the best one. In India, the healthcare is extremely, there's a strong emotional component associated with healthcare, and there's a strong element of trust with the doctor, trust with the channel partners associated with that, right? It cannot completely replaced by technology. So that is why we need to have tech. At the same time, it should be empathetic to the patients, to the channel partners, to the doctors, to the other relevant parties which are a part of the entire healthcare ecosystem, without which it will be very difficult to see any innovation in the health tech space to see the next health tech unicorn in India. And thirdly, I would focus on the fintech space, right? Majority of the Indian population is still unbanked, as in the government of India has kind of created these micro banks for them, where they have these micro accounts with them. But at the same time, the actual transactions and actual digital access to them is still pretty limited in terms of how they're actually using the banking facilities, right? So fintech space has definitely a lot of opportunities. At the same time, government has kind of opened up a lot of situations as well by creating their in-house payment systems like UPI, which has basically made transactions essentially free. So if you have the government's own debit card system, you don't even have to pay transaction fees. That's how effective it has been, and that is why the digital transactions have been up in India, because it is at extremely low prices. So and the government has kind of created the essential benchmarks which are required for fintech innovation to take place. One of my friends, he already had a very successful company. He now started another fintech company. Earlier it was called Rento Mojo. Now he started his own company called Liqui Loans, and he's doing phenomenally well, looking to raise a Series B round in the coming few months. So that is essentially the fintech opportunity in India is still extremely untapped. We already have Paytm, which is a very strong unicorn in the payment space. But even if you look at the banking space, the working capital loan space, and those other opportunities which are there, the amount of opportunities is still extremely high in the fintech space in India. Kyle, you're on mute.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Arsh. Gary, same question to you.
Yeah,
What industries?
Yeah, so in terms of the industries, Harsh is right on target. So health tech right now, with all the focus, a couple of months ago, I was on a panel on drug discovery and artificial intelligence to not utilize bench time. Obviously, with COVID, there's been an enormous amount of money that's been pushed into that environment. So we're seeing quantum leaps, and I hate using the term quantum here, but quantum leaps forward. So health tech, all kinds of things in health tech, from using robotics and operations to smart pills, literally across the board. But again, AI is an enabler across most of the vertical markets. So fintech. So obviously in fintech, all kinds of ways in fintech to use artificial intelligence, robotic process automation to really optimize the systems out there, to hyper personalize. And with the digital transformation that's occurred over the last year, very, very quickly, how do we make it, get the right product to the right person at the right time? Why do we have to go in for a mortgage and does it take 6 weeks? It should happen near instantaneously and very shortly after you would get an appraisal. An appraisal actually on a house should happen very, very quickly instead of taking a month to be able to do. So we need to really streamline the systems out there. So health tech, fintech, and I like space tech with, currently with Starlink going up and the competition that's out there with Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, SpaceX. So, and the beauty is it's not just about going to space, it's about the technology that's developed in space that can be used on Earth, right? So a lot of the technologies that are developed. And of course, sustainability, being able to increase the amount of the optimized agriculture, reduce the carbon emissions, self-driving cars, everything self-driving tractors. We look at it. So the Internet of Things is going to be, the sensors are going to be out in our environment everywhere across most vertical markets from manufacturing. So it was me, I would look at, how to develop sensors that are able to pick up universal sensors using very sophisticated artificial intelligence, because the person that has that data in a very unsupervised way will be able to make those decisions. Dashboards, instant dashboards, real-time access for everything. And that's really where it's coming. I mean, look at it. With, all the shows we've done on VCTV, Kyle, the one thing that comes up is we're inundated with data and we can't make sense of it. I don't care if you're a manager, in my sense with Eva, which is $1 billion company we started, right? A manager needs to understand what's happening. You got 45,000 employees. How in the world, as a CEO of a company, do you know what's happening in Afghanistan and then in London at the same time with a department, with an employee? Are they dissatisfied or satisfied? What are the customer interactions like? And more importantly, how can you help them? How can you coach them and make them better and help them, be more satisfied? So what I see these enabling technologies, AI and quantum computing. I just wrote an article just now, actually, in Forbes magazine, literally published 45 minutes ago, on cognitive computing and its impact on business. So we are at the verge of something very interesting. And what I would say is, the knowledge, being able to have the AI in Nigeria, they're having AI Saturdays now, right? The first part is education, to get people to understand what the possibility is. The next thing is having the tools that enable them. I know we talked about low code, no code. I mean, that's incredible, because it does help us develop a lot faster, a lot better. I can be a manager in a company and develop a solution. I don't have to go down and get my IT folks to, take 6 months to do it. I can do it myself. and I have the, if I'm a manager, I may have that domain expertise. So it's really, it's across the board. The beauty of it is when you create a company, you never know where it's going to go from the beginning. But I can tell you from my partner, who's a billionaire and has done multiple companies, $1 billion, well, actually two with ours, Abby and Eva. But one of the things you do is you dive in, you figure out where there's a problem, make sure you got product market fit. Most importantly, make sure people are willing to spend money for your product or service, because a lot of times there's a lot of BS developed that nobody wants to buy, right? Especially technologists. They'll build something and nobody wants it. So you got to go out, do your customer development. Do people really want it? And how much do they want it? It's like WhatsApp, right? With, Jan. And when he developed WhatsApp, I mean, he wasn't sure in the beginning. He quit his job. He was in the building with Evernote on El Camino Real or in off 101, and didn't even put a sign up because he wasn't sure he was going to be there. And then look what happened. It's explosive growth. So sometimes you don't know, but we know that AI is really important. We know that we're inundated with data. So any way you can synthesize that is going to be, companies are interesting in that space. And so I would look at, for me, I would build a team. I would have somebody charismatic. I would have somebody that's a technologist, and I would have an operations person. And that's how I would build a team.
And thank you, Gary. And where can everyone find you as we're coming to close here online to continue the conversation around today's topic?
You can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, Gary Fowler. Love to hear from you. I got a couple of shows out there and write a lot. So if you're interested, just Google my name in AI and you'll see some things. This is a great time, everybody. A great time to go out and really get stuff done. Don't just think about it as, what is it, Nike says, just do it.
Thank you very much, Gary. Harsh, to you, same question. Where can everyone find you to continue the conversation?
I'm easily available on Facebook and LinkedIn. These are the two networks I'm extremely active in. If you want, you can join my group. I'll be always there to have a lot of discussions. And as Gary kind of pointed out, this is actually quite literally the best time to start a company right now, with the access to technology and the access to funds has never been easier. And there are investors like me, like Gary, and accelerators out there who are just waiting for those bright ideas which we can help nourish to take to the next level.
Thank you very much, Harsh and Gary. And to our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click subscribe, share the episode, and check out the archive at LaToken.com to hear more from Harsh and Gary, along with the entire VCTV family of speakers and investors from around the world. If you'd like to be on a show, reach out to the team and or myself. We'll find that right spot for you. Also, a big thank you to the team at LaToken, to Hasmic, and to Maria for making today's episode of VCTV possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with all social media platforms, as Harsh, Gary have mentioned as well. With that, we'll be taking a short break, and we'll see you here tomorrow with more VCTV as well. Everyone have a wonderful day. Take care and go build some unicorn companies.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.